Hey everybody, Frank Spicer, CEO of Metafied here with our recap. Really great recap today about the Genius and Clarity Acts with Yeti and Matt Cross. Our Yeti's a mod and community leader, and Matt's a chief business development officer. We also had today our investor and friend of the company, Peyton Johnson from the DIY Fund, to discuss generally the implications of the the Genius Act and what it means to crypto, Web3, and the financial markets in general. Matt, what did you take away from today's space?
Yeah, today's space was definitely one of my favorites. We got really technical about, what does it mean to start to increase the velocity of money for the rest of the world? What does it mean to have, 24-hour settlement where you could pay back, debt or utilize these treasuries? And we looked at, what does it mean for the current banking system and also possibly ending the Fed by creating, better incentives into the rest of the world. And instead of focusing on inflating our own money supply, thinking about ways to creatively get more money into our economy faster.
Yeah, great point. There's a lot to unpack there. Yeti, what did you take away?
I love the idea that it'll be used in countries where inflation is kind of running rampant as a hedge against their own currency's inflation, like being able to get US dollars in, countries with runaway inflation and being able to kind of mitigate that. And also the main thing for us, I guess, the thing I'm most excited by is the fact that there is now clarity around the legal framework for builders to build, and that like we know that tokens aren't going to be categorized as securities, or that there's gives is it 3 years that projects have got from now to decentralize their tokens enough to.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yep.
the deadline for the implementation of the Genius Act is July 18th, 2028. You got a little bit of
Yep.
time there.
Yeah, it's a good amount of time, and yeah, it's like too long in the coming. Like it feels like it's something that should have happened a fair while ago, but fantastic that it has finally happened. And I think that the implications around like tracking and the kind of surveillance state kind of issues are outweighed by the positives of it. That it's necessary. I think it's like there are some parts of it that I don't like, but it's necessary evil. I think to have this legal framework there.
Well, one of the great things that came out of the press conference and the announcement of the bill is the U.S. government made clear it does not have plans to issue a central bank digital currency, so CBDC for everyone out there. That's great news for privacy advocates everywhere. I think it's one of those things where everybody was on edge to see if that was going to be one of the things that got put in the bill, and it was decidedly not. And President Trump made it extremely clear that there's no plans and he will not sign a bill that has that in it. So that's great. Another key point to today's conversation was the way that banks work now, where there's bankers hours. Everybody's heard that term. It shifts the way dollars can be applied to deals, to credit markets, from a banking window of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern time in the United States for a lot of stuff, to now a global sort of 24/7, 365 deal market. So you don't have to. You can have things that are denominated in dollars that are auditably will pass an audit. They're backed by dollars, and you can use them in deals on a Sunday afternoon if you have something in front of you. It also shortens the window for settlement. So instead of, for instance, Peyton mentioned today on the space, he was part of a deal that took 120 days to get done. All of that gets condensed now to a few seconds to execute the transaction, and you can obviously set your terms of your deal up in a smart contract so you can have a reliable way to transfer and execute the deal, and you can settle the deal and fund it in minutes instead of 120, 90 to 120 days in some cases, right? So that's a huge change in terms of accelerating the velocity of money in the world, and that money will be denominated in U.S. dollars, and has to be backed 1-to-1 according to the law. And that's one piece. Another interesting thing is that we talked about sanctions and what sanctions mean when you're economically, sanctioning a country. I think they know that there's a bunch of different ways to get around it. They're not particularly effective. Um, you know, it's not one of those things where you can really enforce it given the fluidity of ways to transfer money. And instead of having to play catch up and surveillance and go that route, I think the United States just said with the passage of this act is that instead, if you're going to execute these deals, execute it in money that you're going to settle with. And if it's against the law, they'll still come find you and do everything they need to do on the criminal side. But they realize it's unrealistic to enforce sanctions when there's a bunch of different ways to get around it. So why not execute all those deals in the best verifiable money that there is, the US dollar? So essentially, we've, with one stroke of a pen, added trillions of dollars to the global appetite for dollars. And what that does is it sort of increases the purchasing power of the dollar, increases the demand for the dollar, because as all those other dollars, off the books dollars, get soaked up and pulled into these systems, you wind up with a 24/7, 365 credit market that is orchestrated around the velocity of the money and not simply volume of the money, right? It's a huge shift from the way the economies work now, right, Matt?
Oh, I 1,000% agree. I can't even put into expectations, what this means for our economy and the rest of the world. I think no economist even imagined how money could even move that fast in the future, where we're going to see a ton of upside, and we're going to start to see, a revival of the U.S. right now. And I would say, continue to make our economy better and let's bring it home.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Yeti, you touched on it. What does this all mean to Metafied? How does it help our users? Obviously, with the impending Clarity Act that we touched on at the end, it gives us a pathway to understand how to be regulated. It gives us confidence that we can support swappable tokens into the game that fit the requirements for the Genius Act. So obviously, USDC, USDT will be involved there. But our plans at Metafied are to support any auditable stable token that has enough users to warrant it. So we're going to treat the stable tokens as stable tokens, and if it has a 1-to-1 redeemable value, our roadmap will support the people bringing them to our games, where people compete to predict the price of digital and real world assets, and we'll accept that as swappable into our token. So I think for us, it's pretty clear. We just need to support stable tokens that can pass the requirements. So, I mean, that's pretty simple for us, right? Any final words, Yeti, on where you think this is going to go for the crypto markets?
Like it's only going to be good for the crypto markets. You can't see it going any other way. And I think the rest of the world will have to follow suit now. Like it's like, now that the largest economy in the world has done it. I think if, even if it wasn't America that did it, I think other places would have had to follow pretty quickly, because innovation would have just been driven to that place. But I mean, given that it's America and that it's kind of front running this, that it's the first of its kind in a way, I think the rest of the world will have to follow suit, and that can only be a good thing for crypto and for builders.
Yeah. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I think as more public institutions start to issue stable coins, it's going to be great for retail. There's going to be a ton of rewards and incentives dropped into the market. But I also think we're going to have to be careful about when the dust starts to settle and what that looks like and who we can really trust as a main source for this.
Yeah. And I'll make a prediction here at the end here. And what I'll say is that I think now that the volume of stable tokens will be visible on a blockchain, verifiable to everybody that's using them, I think one of the things that comes out of this is the volume and size of the U.S. economy becomes visible to everybody. And I think we're going to see that the U.S. economy and where it reaches and its integration into global supply chains is considerably larger than maybe it's been reported before. So when you start to tie in all the supply chains and where it goes and understand how things get funded, I think it'll be pretty easily apparent to anybody paying attention that the size of the US market is considerably bigger than the aggregate reporting that's going on right now. That's just one prediction. It's yet to be seen, but I have a fair amount of confidence that we're going to see that. That's
Got
all
a pretty
for
good
today.
strike rate with your prediction, so I'd back it.
So far, I've been on a streak. So
Yeah.
let's see. Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everybody out there. Visit us on discord.gg/FIDE-token. Find us on YouTube at MetaFIDE. Find us on X at FIDE_AI. And make sure you're registered on our waitlist, surge.metafide.io, surge.metafide.io. And we're going to make sure that everybody gets into this game and gets a chance to participate in prediction of digital and real world assets. Come on the journey with us, and we'll see everybody next time at our next space on Thursday. Thanks a lot.
Take care, everyone.
Cheers.
MetaFIDE is the only AI-powered Bitcoin prediction game where traders compete in real time to forecast BTC's price in a fast 1 to 5 minute round. Test your skills against global players. Take on 1x risk with the ability to win multiplied payouts and prize pots. The more accurate and early, the better the outcome. Pre-register now for early access to generational wealth.